Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel. Together with these great partners, we are able to bring you quality information to help you reach your whitetail habitat goals quicker but more proficiently. Northwoods Whitetails, Plot Doctor, Harper Growing Solutions, Scent Thief, Real Wood Productions, Ace Hardware of Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Here we are, hard to believe. Opening day of the Kentucky archery season here, 2023. Like I said, it's hard to believe that it comes this quick. All of your preparation, the groundwork, the food plots, right, the strategies, all comes together, and we wake up one morning and first week of September, and here you go, we're getting it kicked off. So as you can tell, first morning of the Kentucky season, and here I am. Well, I was gonna say I'm not in the blind, but at times the deer are right in the yard. I guess we could use it as a blind at times, but all kidding aside, is we're not out in the field this morning, right? We're at the porch. And I'm actually got some deer in the fields across the road. Had some deer just working their way in and out of the food or the corn this morning from afar. And we're not in there. And why is that? So you hear me talk of that all the time, guys. You hear me talk of this early season PM situation, right? We want to focus our attention on more early season hunts in the afternoon than we do in the morning. And why is that, right? You hear, I try to do on the channel anymore is anytime that I try to teach something, I've always tried to back it up with a reason, right? Proof and a reason. And the reason for that is, guys, is it's such that marathon, not a sprint mentality, right? This time of the year, what you're doing is there's a slim chance. Now, not that it can't happen, not that it shouldn't happen, but there's a slim chance that you can actually get back to those bedding areas or those any stand location. Maybe that's not so deep. Maybe you set it up in preparation for an early season stand, right? There's a very slim chance that you can get back into those locations to have a successful hunt without blowing anything out, because they're so much ahead of you this time of the year, right? So that's where the PM hunts come in. We try to take that marathon approach. We do the closer to food sources, not on food sources, right? But something you can get into and get out of without getting busted. If you are hunting close to a food source, maybe even your shot plots, then what I recommend is, and not everybody has this option, but what I recommend is looking at the possibility, if you have someone in camp, like my father's in camp here with us right now, and he would come up and get me out of the right out of the blind. I would walk up there, in the PM, the early season. I'd walk up through the top to access the stands, and I would get in there, that 2 o'clock time, let's say 2-3 o'clock, and I wouldn't get out until he comes right to the base of the blind and picked us up. Now, I don't set my stands up for that, because if you do, and you can't get out, what if you don't have somebody to pick you up? But if you have the option, that's how you kind of cheat the system on getting a little bit closer to that food source, stuff like that. But what I find a lot of right now, guys, is it's the opening day have to be in the stand syndrome, right? And I understand that, I really do. You wait all year, especially like a morning like this, it's like 53 and it's supposed to be 92, right? It was in the high 80s, low 90s yesterday, and I get it, I really do. All the work, all the preparation, it's here, and we want to go in. So like I said, guys, I really, really encourage you this year to not go in to those most common stands that I see this time of the year, AM, food source, or like here in Kentucky, AM, food source, and has a feeder, right? If you have the option, you have food plots, and you have the availability like we do here in Kentucky to run a feed program, my feeders are on my food plots, obviously, just to back the tonnage up on my plots. They're not there to hunt over. Yes, I can see them with my from my rifle blinds, but I cannot shoot them. I can't even see them from my bow stands. It's a very important piece of the puzzle, and the reason for that is, guys, is very few, if any, very few a year, stand locations that I see when I go to client properties, very few of those that are already there, that they're already using, or maybe we set a shot plot up, something like that. Very few of those can be accessed into the morning without a high risk of blowing something out. So you really got to watch that. If you're watching this, or you just got out of the stand and you hunted this morning, one, that should be kind of a caution. And two, the other part of that is if you were hunting over a feeder or a pile of corn, well, then you're in this loop, right? Now, I'm not saying it can't be done, because that's where the trail cameras come in. The way I would do that, if you are going to hunt AMs this time of the year, and AM over your food sources or over a feeder especially, right? How I would do that is, I have a couple of them here that I could do that. But you want to get as close as you can to those stands without knowing that you're not going to blow nothing out, in a location where you can see that feeder or that food plot. And you want to access the final approach. You want to take the last few steps into that stand, that final approach, in gray light. And in other words, what I'm saying is, you have to let them critters get away from that feeder, and or get away from the food source, and then get in the stand. Well, most folks ask me, why would we do that? Because now your deer are leaving before you're getting in the stand. And that's where that hurdle comes in. You have to be able to get in there. It's not a question. It's not, can I get in there? It has to be a yes, I can get in there, because there's been no deer on the camera for a 2-hour gap. Maybe you got to go to the stand at 3 a.m. Maybe you got to go to the stand at 8 a.m. There has to be a gap in there where there's nothing coming to that feed, or that bait pile, or that food plot, right? A lot of times what you'll see right now is, if you look at your cameras, and I've got a few of them doing it now, you start seeing some of the mature bucks, especially if it's not a feeder on a field edge or backing up food plot, something that was intentionally put there to hunt. If it's interior of a wood lot, what you'll see is, noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, these bucks are on their feet and they're eating. And a lot of that's got to do with, they're very irritable right now with that velvet, and the bugs, maybe they're starting to shed a little bit, and it's still warm, and the bugs are out bugging them, and they get on their feet, and the next thing they know, they go to find something to eat. It has to be a very secluded area before this time of the year, before I see a lot of that happening. But that's the movement. That's the time that you want to take advantage of that. Yes, it's going to be hot, it's going to be miserable, but if you're in the stand and that happens 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, late in the morning, you have plenty of time to get in there. So I highly recommend, if you're going to be a AM early season hunter, be very smart. Research that. Just don't take the approach of, I know I can get in there, and if I blow the deer out, they're going to come back. Horrible strategy. And I think the most important reason for that is, guys, is the one I stress a lot of, is the most important reason for that is what happens is, it ruins your PM hunts so bad. It takes, if you bump those deer out in the morning and they don't go back to that same bedding area where they have been, and you interrupt that flow that you've had, that you've been watching through the summer, what happens is it sets back their movement to that PM location where you probably could have got in there untouched, right? So be smart about that. I've got a couple stand locations right now. The one that I've done videos on before, it's a water hole that I know I could get in there in the morning, and time wise, and I could probably kill every mature buck at some point on that stand. The problem with it is, it's the furthest stand back, one of the furthest stands back from the house here, and the problem with that is I'm going to blow something out of a bedding area somewhere through that. And do I want to risk that this early in the game to create what we have all heard of. And I just keep waiting for this because the clock, the stopwatch has already been hit this morning. And what happens is you start that chain of that pressure, and 7 to 10 days from now, 10 days usually, start watching your social media your feeds. Start watching the mentality and the talk of hunters that, we all share information, right? Start watching and start listening, and what you're going to hear is the October lull is happening, right? Well, here in Kentucky, we open up in September, we have a September lull. So why is that? It has nothing to do with all these are the excuses or the reasons, I guess, that you'll hear are all the deer move to the oaks, right? It's a huge deal in October. Everything moved to the oaks, so now everybody moves their stands to the oaks. And what they do is you're taking that pressure and you're applying it somewhere else, is what you're doing. The reason that they went to the oaks a lot of the times is because they're pressured to go there. Not to say that the oaks aren't finally, ripe and there now and starting to drop. Has some bearing, has some truth to it. Problem is, guys, you want that piece of that puzzle. You want that movement. Those large oak savanna flats should be a destination food source, not something that you're hunting anyway. It's no different than if you're hunting on an oak savanna, a area with large amount of oaks, and that's probably open canopy or closed canopy timber where it's actually more mature oaks. Then what you're going to have is you're hunting a food source, a destination food source, just like you were hunting a destination food source early. You might just as well be sitting on your food plot at that point, right? So a couple tips there, guys, a couple things that I see going into this time of the year. Very important pieces of the puzzle. Be very smart about your approach. If you are going to, your access, your exits, your ins and your outs, right? Early season, if you are going to hunt AM, make sure, probably the last closing point here we'll touch on, guys, is this. Remember, especially early season stands, if you do hunt in the morning, now you can take this theory right through the rest of the year too, but remember, just because you enter in some way doesn't mean that you have to exit that same way. Example is, if you're accessing from the outside in, hopefully, or if you have a like I've got an interior access because there's no food there, and I've got a great switchgrass line with some HD screening and stuff that I can get in here just the way my farm lays out, which is common in ridge country, and you're hunting into those locations. Remember, guys, I can go down my fence row, get into a stand location, but I'm going to come out the food plots, right? I'm going to come out the top. If there's a way that you're not too far from that, or you have to maybe 100 yards or 50 yards or wherever that case is to get in the field, and then to get out of Dodge, use those ridge top, use those fields, use those food plots to exit after a morning hunt, 10, 11 o'clock, noon, whatever that is. And the reason for that is, guys, I think a lot of people do that. They prep their access in and out, right? Their egress, exit, or their entrance and exits into their stands. And we all want to go back out the same way that we went in. What happens is you take a lot of caution getting into that stand in the morning because there wasn't deer there, right? And then you go to get out and you can't control, deer don't know fence lines. So your habitat has to be extremely, extremely correct with a lack in correct habitat on your neighbors in order for you to be able to go back out that same fence row and not get busted. The further in the property you go, the more of an issue that can be. All something that you want to just take your time and really, really use that, all those things that we just talked of with caution this time of the year, because there's so much good yet to come, right? There's so much cruising and so many days in a 90-day season around the country, maybe even longer. There's so many good days and so many good weather days that you're going to be in, AM or PM, have the opportunity to hunt your target bucks. And you don't want to blow that out right now. If something is making a mistake, if something's making goofy mistakes, it's a mature buck of your choice, and you want to go in, and you think you can get it done, make sure you check off all the boxes, and it's 100% that you know you can get in there and then the rest is up to him coming. But you have to remember, if he doesn't show up and you don't send an arrow down range, can you get out of dodge without getting busted? And is it going to create a bunch of pressure? That pressure chain that, like I always say, that you can't stop, that you can't catch, right? Don't be that hunter in the neighborhood, and you'll be much better off the rest of the season. Thanks, guys.